appropriation of $1.4 million in matching funds to support the application.
I'm sorry, can you add that thing again? Did you just add?
I'm going to ask you a question, point of information. Ms. Best, I just want to make sure that this is complete. Could you please pull the motion that was stated on March 8th
I have it
for
here.
R4?
I have it right here, clear. I read it from the staff. The city administration recommends. I'm reading from what they recommended and making that into a motion. That's what we normally do.
Who's speaking now?
I have a point of information for Ms. Bess. I'd like to ask if you could pull the full motion from March 8th in regards to R4, because there was a lot of discussion and clarity.
I made the motion. I can remember what I said, but while she's pulling it, but it did have the authorization.
Who's got the floor right now?
The chair does. I'm speaking to her.
So
I am looking for my folder for the.
while you're doing that, I have a point of information for Mr. Aaron Reed-Miller, Director Reed-Miller.
Yes, ma'am.
In order for us to, we had conversations on March 8th. I just want to be sure that this is clear. I know that we're going to move forward with the funds, the Land Water Conservation Renewal Funds. As I'm saying it correct, LWCF.
That's correct.
Correct, LWCF.
Mm-hmm.
And please excuse me, I have a ton of acronyms I have to go by every day. But we had a conversation, and the conversation also included the matching funds. If this action that we're taking, as you presented, to move forward, does that encompass everything needed for you to do this grant application?
That would encompass everything required for the application. Yes. I think it's important that we understand that we're saying that we are going to provide matching funds. We've recommended that come from American Rescue Plan funding. However, that if another source were available, it would certainly be up to your discretion to determine if that was more appropriate. However, we thought that was the most appropriate place for the matching funding to come from. But yes, if we have a motion that we can include or indicate that our council has authorized us to move forward with an authorization on the matching funds, it demonstrates to the Department of Conservation and Recreation and the National Park Service that the city is serious about this project.
Okay, and what was the dollar value of the matching funds?
At $1.4 million.
Okay.
For a total project value of $2.8 million.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna point of information for Councilor Gore. Not a point of information. Never mind.
Well,
I'm okay.
I do have
the floor is open for discussion.
I do have a point of information, Madam Mayor.
Well, I've had my hand up.
What you're referring to. So, Mr. Reed-Miller, I remember in the backup for the CAF, I think it was $500,000 from the creek restoration project that we no longer need can supplement that 1.4 as well. So is that still on the table for us to use? So really it could be 900,000 of the American Rescue Plan funds, and then the remaining capital improvement for the creek project that we don't need anymore.
Well, I believe that initial Cattail Creek funding was coming from American Rescue Plan funding. It's just no longer needed because that project is fully funded with an outside source. So that we know that's $500,000 of American Rescue Plan funding that was kind of sort of semi-earmarked that's no longer needed. And I don't want to speak for Mr. Altman, but I believe that's essentially what he moved into that $500,000 line item for the marina in the presentation he gave on March 8th.
Okay, thank you. That provides clarity.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes, ma'am.
did you still want me to read the motion?
Just for a point of information, this is just, I wanted to make sure that, we're in the same direction, but yes, please restate the motion that was taken action upon March 8th on item R4.
Okay. Motion to approve the Land Water Conservation Fund grant application and match of 1.4 million from American Rescue Plan Act funding.
You left out the as presented on February 22nd.
No, this is what she's reading, what was,
This is a motion on
Oh,
March
that was the
8th.
motion. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
that was the motion that was made March 8th. And she just restated what it was. Now, moving forward to right now, can you restate what the motion is right now, Molly?
Yes, I believe I can. Motion to authorize city administration. Motion to authorize the city administration to authorize
To proceed, take out the authority.
to what?
Proceed.
To proceed with the Land and Water Conservation Grant funding that was presented to council on 2/22/22 and voted on 2/8/22.
On 3.
I'm sorry, 3/8/22 as presented.
Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and ask everyone to just not say anything while Molly is saying the motion,
Okay,
so that we make sure she hears herself, and if it's anything that's wrong with the motion, we can just go back and let her know. So I heard a lot of talking during the time Molly was reading, and I could not hear. And for the record, can you please restate the motion once more, Molly?
ma'am. Motion to authorize the city administration to proceed, with Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application that was presented to City Council on 2/22/22 and voted on 3/8/22 as presented.
Mrs. Pelham also said, and appropriate $1.4 million match.
Matching.
What I didn't hear earlier. Okay.
Okay. Appropriation of 1.4 million matching funds, but not designate where they're coming from. So that can change overnight.
Okay. So I don't need to not put where they're coming from though, right? Just.
Not in my motion.
Okay. So I'm gonna do it one more time. Motion to authorize the city administration to proceed with the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application that was presented to City Council on 2/22/22 and voted on 3/8/22 as presented, and appropriate $1.4 million in matching funds.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have Counselor Randolph's hand and then Counselor Pelham's hand.
Okay,
Yes,
I think I've been very patient, so I'm going to say something. We have not been on Zoom for a while. I would appreciate the mayor making sure that everybody raises their hands before they speak instead of everybody just speaking. Well, I have a point of information, if I might, to Mr. Reed Miller. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I have my point of information to Mr. Reed Miller.
Yes, Director Reed Miller.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for you in this grant, since I'm not familiar with what it says in the grant. Is the city going to have to put out the entire estimated $2.8 million of money before we get reimbursed, or how is that reimbursement going to work?
I believe we can seek incremental reimbursements as the work is completed. However, there may come a time in the project administration where we are upfronting costs as we build that the city would then be reimbursed for.
Okay,
It
so
is a reimbursement style grant. So we have to demonstrate that we have made expenditures before the reimbursement is released back to us.
So what I think I hear you saying is we do not have to completely outlay the 1.4 half before we start getting reimbursements. And we do not have to put out the full 2.8 in order to get reimbursements.
No, we should not have to put out $2.8 million at one time, because a project of this size, the contractor wouldn't wait until the end of the
Right,
project to build.
you're
They'll
gonna
bill
get
in
draws.
increments throughout the project,
You're
which
gonna
we
get
would
draw-
then
you're gonna do
immediately
draws.
submit for reimbursement.
Okay. And secondly, in your statement, you said we thought it would be the best place to do the 1.4 would be the CARES Act. And we means you and the city manager and Mr. Anderson as well, right? All of you all felt that that was going to be coming from, all of it would come from CARES. Is it when you say we?
Well, I'll take responsibility for that. I don't want to speak on behalf of Mr. Altman or Mr. Anderson. So I should say I, simply stating that because the only other fund I know of that has that amount is our rainy day fund. And I don't think we want to tap into that for this particular project. So American Rescue Plan funds were recommended by me. I don't want to put that on anybody else.
Okay. And that's fine. I'm just trying to clarify if you did work with Mr. Altman to find out where these funds would be best suited from and whether there were other priorities for these funds versus this. That was my only desire to know. And at this point, I think what you're saying is you felt that that would be the best place for them. And I appreciate that. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Before I move forward, I did see Miss Hudson. I saw your hand up. Did you take it down?
I did.
Okay. Counselor Pelham.
Okay, my question was answered.
Okay. I don't see any other hands.
Wait a minute. I can't find it.
Oh, okay.
Where I am.
Counselor Denton.
Yes, I have just, I guess, Mr. Reed Miller, you would need, since you're the one that is preparing the grant, and I don't believe anyone has read this grant. Am I correct?
I am part of the team that's preparing the grant application. Our city engineer, Mr. Anderson, is assisting as kind of our technical construction expert. And of course, we're using Sustainable Strategies, our contract grant writing entity, to help pull all of the pieces together. It is a very large and very complex grant application. So they are assisting with kind of the compilation of all of the different pieces of the puzzle that you have to submit to create a full application.
Okay, then my question is kind of a two-part question. We've been talking about the 1.4 reimbursement. Is that a lock-in number? Because as we sit here tonight, this world is not in a very good stage. And being in construction myself through real estate, I know what materials have done and where they are and how they're committed. Are you telling us this is a firm 1.4? Can it go any higher?
Well, it certainly could go higher. You're absolutely right. I think you're touching on inflation, that we could fall victim to that, like anyone else in the midst of a big construction project right now. That was part of our reason for pursuing this so aggressively now, as opposed to waiting a year, because things realistically could get much worse. I think we all recognize that potential threat with all that's going on the world stage right now. But nonetheless, still with this project construction, even if we move forward tonight and we're awarded the grant, construction wouldn't start until 2023. So we may very realistically feel the impact of inflation. My intent is not to go beyond our stated project budget. That's our budget. That's what I want to stick to. We may have to reduce the scope of work in certain areas to cut costs. We would identify parts and pieces of the plan that could be deferred until a later date. And at that point, we would just have to find alternate funding sources to cover those additional costs. So the project can be scaled down in phases if we find ourselves in a situation where inflation creates a significant increase in that total project cost.
Okay, I guess then my next question to you would be, do you know what the full impact of this grant could be to our city?
Full impact.
Impact as far as what you're trying to do, such as can we continue to develop the marina area? Are you telling us that this grant is saying that what is in this grant is perpetual, that we would lose any ability to ever develop the riverfront that we have now?
So with the Land and Water Conservation Fund, part of that grant funding does include a conservation easement that would be placed on the 2 parcels that make up the marina. That conservation easement would limit any future private development on the site. So it doesn't mean that we can't add or repair or replace recreational features that are part of this project, but it would prevent future private commercial development within either of the parcels that are defined in this project.
So we would lose all ability to, I know council in the past has tried to develop up on the hill where the restaurant was. We would never, ever be able to do that. Am I correct?
I don't want to say never, ever. You can reverse a conservation easement. Of course, there's a process to do that, and it essentially requires a land swap. But without that process, the land would be protected by a conservation easement that would prevent private commercial development on that upper parcel.
So that would mean no income to the city at all. Am I right? We would not have any. Well, maybe I should say, can we keep our slips? Can we continue to rent the boat slips that bring in revenue to the city now?
That's something if we're selected to move forward in the review process and we've made the decision to keep boat slips, that's going to be contradictory to the application, of course, because the application does not include long-term rental slips, because the whole premise behind Land and Water Conservation funding is not for-profit recreational ventures, it is for public access. That is why we're pursuing this particular funding opportunity with the concept that's been shown, because the concept conforms to the pillars of Land and Water Conservation funding, which are expanded public recreation, public river access, and environmental protection. Rental slips are not a part of their priorities.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, the city can no longer, will just be doing away with the marina as it is today and turning it over to conservationists and letting it be a park.
I want to be cautious in how we say that. So the only thing I wouldn't say the marina as a whole. I would say the boat slips as they exist now, they would go away. The parking area, the boat ramp, the docks associated with the boat ramp, the store, the ice machine, the public fishing area, the overlook pavilion, all of that remains unchanged and just becomes improved as a part of the project. So the only significant change is the removal of the boat slips for reasons we've shared, on a number of occasions, and replaces that with a public event space that can be accessed by the entire community.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I see Counselor Counselor Gore first and then Counselor Randolph. And I just want to make sure that everyone knows that you have a time to speak up to 3 minutes.
No, I'm sure.
I knew that would be important.
Counselor Gore.
And that doesn't count when you're asking questions, correct? It's just, it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't count the response.
Point of information is not the counted. If I'm wrong, please, Ms. Hudson, correct me. If point of informations are part of the time to speak, but to my knowledge, it's not.
Yeah, typically when you, okay, cool. So just when he responds, it's not counted with my time. Okay. So just to clarify, thank you, Mayor Bennett. One, I also want to say thank you for that beginning session. We're trying to get the motions together and working together as a team to make sure we all were on the same page. I do appreciate that because it's important with why we're here. But just to get clarity, Mr. Reed Miller said the only thing that would really be different is removing the covered boat slips, which right now only serves potentially up to 40 individual citizens. Correct. That's the only difference in terms of what the marina will be quote unquote losing.
That's correct. Let me just adjust the numbers a little bit. We have both covered and uncovered slips right now. They're not all covered. They're not all open. We have 14 open slips and 30 covered slips. All 44 of them would go away in the new plan based on our past issues and the costs related to maintenance, management, and the difficulties we've had with that over the last 20 years. And
as you speak to the last 20 years, since I've been on council, there has been a request for us to look at a development project that included a restaurant on the hill. But if my memory serves me correct, due to the other environmental requirements for land usage, the square footage that remained on top of the hill was so small that it wasn't feasible for development projects. Would you not agree?
I wasn't privy to that. That was prior to my time with the city, so I can't agree to that with total confidence. However, my understanding of where the RPA and the RMA, resource protection area, resource management area, that are located near the waterfront, they do encroach on that property fairly substantially, and in my opinion, would make development difficult, not impossible, but certainly difficult.
Okay, well, I can attest for when being on council, when that was presented to us, that's one of the reasons why we didn't move forward, because the developers couldn't find a square footage that they can actually build something useful on. So then the other question I would have, since you've been the director of development, has anyone approached you with economic development deals on that project property?
Is that directed to me?
Yes.
So I have not been approached with any.
Councilor Randolph, can you mute your line, please? We can hear your comments.
I haven't received any development offers or interest in my 7 years with the city. I don't know that they would come to me, but Recreation and Parks is responsible for managing the property. And we have not received any direct inquiries for development at the marina.
Okay, so then my other question I have is regards to revenue. If my memory is correct, like you said, you have the ice machine that's going to stay there, and that's the revenue. So on average, I think we said we get about $25,000 a year as it stands right now in terms of revenue for the city, correct?
That the 25,000 represents what the marina operator pays. That does not include the ice house rental.
Okay.
Of course, what the marina operator pays is based on them receiving revenue from the boat ramp and the slip rentals. Obviously, if we take that away, we have to take that into consideration. But based on what we could charge for the store and what we're currently charging for the ice house, I think it's very realistic to say those two leases combined would still continue to bring in at least $25,000 a year, if not more, if we redo those contracts.
Agreed. And not only that, there's potential opportunity with bringing in external vendors to do festivals, tournaments, events, and even outside recreation opportunities where we can charge as well. So there's more opportunities for us to have revenue generating streams in the future than what we currently do now.
That's correct. All of those are realistic. Those are conceivable things that could be pursued under the new concept, and be a source of revenue to the city. That is correct.
Okay, and the last thing I'll ask is, with this proposed plan, there'll still be boat access, correct? So people can still dock their boats and come downtown and participate in other items that we have there, even if there is events. So being able to use your boat there is not going to go away. And in fact, we might reduce or eliminate the fee actually to use the launch, correct?
Yeah, part of this opportunity is potentially includes eliminating the boat ramp fee as well. Our community is a very boat ramp oriented community. We have a lot of people who trailer boats, keep them parked in their backyard or their driveway, bring them down on the weekends. The boat ramp is a vital amenity to our community. That's something we are definitely keeping. It is remaining the same size. We're actually going to improve the approach angle so it's easier to use all 4 lanes simultaneously. That will not go away. Making it free, we looked at that strengthens our application. And it also addresses the difficulty with actually collecting the ramp fee. So unless you have a paid staff person watching the ramp, it's based on an honor system. We know that honor system doesn't work all too well. I actually held the position where I monitored the ramp and collected money as a part-time employee many years ago. And if there was any indication that no eyes were watching, the ramp fee just simply didn't get paid. And when you look at our neighbors, Chesterfield County, Dutch Gap, they have a Department of Wildlife Resources boat ramp. It's free to residents. Henrico County at Osborne Landing has the same thing, boat ramp free to residents. We are currently exploring opportunities to partner with Wildlife Resources to have our boat ramp fall into a similar situation where future maintenance and repairs would potentially be offset by funding from the state.
Thank you. That's it for my first time.
Thank you. To go around, Counselor Pelham, then we're going to have Counselor Randolph, and then
I thought
Counselor.
I was out after Counselor Gore.
Yeah, but you already spoke. So
No, I had 2 point of informations.
Yes, vote.
Did you all determine whether point of informations are count or do not
you
count?
can go ahead. Is this another point of information or is this a comment?
Nope, I've got questions for the city manager, but I can ask them unless you want me to make it a point of order to ask him.
I'm not asking you to make it a point of order. This is your time to speak.
No,
So
you're
if
the
you have questions for the
parliamentarian.
city
I'm just
manager,
trying to make sure of how you want the meeting to run. If I ask somebody a question, do you need it to be in a point of order, or is it okay for me to ask them without a point of order?
you can go ahead and ask your questions.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions for the city manager. I'm unclear as to the aspects of the property at the top of the marina. I understand that the concept is going to lose the marina slips, but Mr. Reedmiller talked about some conservation easements that are already on the top. Could you elaborate on that for me, Mr. Altman?
Okay,
Because
so
I know
I'm gonna be clear right now. I just want to stop. The motion on the floor, you have to speak to the motion on the floor. The motion on the floor is to authorize the administration to move forward, to approve as presented as council.
Okay.
Approve which is permitted as council.
So how
If
is
you're
this any
asking
different from
questions
the
about
questions
the-
that were just asked?
Well, these were actually
Statements.
presented at the March, these were actually presented at the March 8th meeting and the February 2nd, 2022.
Right.
Now, if you have any questions on what the funds are going to look like, or if you have anything that's pertaining, but you have to stick with, your questions have to stick with the motion. If it
Well,
does
how are
not,
you-
and if it does not, there was questions you asked prior to the motion being placed on the floor. If your comments or your questions are not pertaining to the motion that is currently on the floor, then they're irrelevant. So I want council to understand that moving forward.
Okay.
I'm the chair.
So I
I am
have,
the-
as
excuse me, Counselor Denton.
clarification,
I mean,
if an
Counselor
answer
Randolph.
from Counselor Gore
Counselor
was
Randolph.
just answered, and
Counselor
that
Ran-
was part of the
Coun-
answer for
Counselor
her
Randolph.
questions.
Counselor Randolph, I am the chair. Moving forward, I just said, if your questions are not pertaining to the motion that is on the floor, which is council rules, then they're irrelevant and we have to move on.
Well, how are they
Ma'am,
irrelevant if I'm asking
Counselor
a
Randolph, I
question
will ask you,
that was
Counselor
just
Randolph, if
stated out by
Counselor Randolph,
another
I would like to
question?
take Counselor Randolph, if you do
I'm
not
just asking
understand,
how you're playing this, because
I'm not
this
playing
doesn't
anything.
seem, I'm
Counselor
simply,
Randolph, I will ask council to consider taking a motion in reference to
Call
our
for the
rules
vote,
in
call for the
206.
vote, call for the vote, call for the vote.
There's a
I have-
there's a motion on the floor to call for the vote. That takes precedence.
God, you know,
Roll call,
Point
this
of
is
order,
ridiculous.
point of order,
Right,
roll call. There's a
Vice
motion to
Mayor.
call for vote.
point
Vice
of
M-
order.
Council,
There's no point of order. It's a call for the vote. There's a
Council,
motion on the floor.
I like a legal question answered.
Call for the vote.
Councilor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Denton,
No,
Councilor Pelham,
Yes.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Councilor Randolph,
Absolutely not. This is unfair and being run half-assed. Sorry, but that's what it is, because you're playing
Point of
favorites.
order, we have.
There's no point of
Councilor
order in a
Holloway.
vote.
Excuse me,
There's no point of order
Ms.
in the middle
Bess,
of a
can you
vote.
please pull Rule 206 or
Thank you for-
304 in reference to a counselor who is
First
being derogatory? I would like to make a motion. I would like someone to make a motion to remove that counselor from
Don't have to.
the meeting.
I'll leave myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is bullshit. You're not even playing fairly.
You're being very
Okay.
descriptive. You're very,
Wow.
Councilor Holloway.
Yes.
No.
Motion passes 4-2.
Now we have the motion.
state the motion, please.
Yes, ma'am. Motion to authorize city administration to proceed with Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application that was presented to council on 2/22/22 and voted on 3/8/22 as presented, and appropriate $1.4 million in matching funds.
That's the motion on the floor. It was motioned by Counselor Pelham, properly seconded by Counselor Gore. Roll call.
did we? What did we just take? You can't discuss this one?
Roll call.
Councilor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Denton,
I don't know what we're voting on. What did we just vote on?
Restate the,
What did
I'm
we
sorry if you can't
vote on?
hear. There's a motion on the floor,
What
and
did
the
we
motion was
just vote on?
restated by Ms. Bess. If you didn't hear that, Ms. Bess, can you please restate the motion?
motion to authorize the city administration to proceed with Land and Water Conservation Fund grant.
I have a
Okay.
point of order.
Counselor Denton,
Can I?
Ms. Bess
ask
is
the
going to restate the
attorney?
motion so that you could hear it. You said you didn't know what we were voting
I'm-
on. So this answers your question.
I need a point of order because I don't understand what in the world.
What is your point of order, ma'am?
I want to know what we just voted on.
We voted on call for the vote, meaning the vote, we're going to go ahead and vote on this action that's already on the floor.
Okay, that's what I
Okay.
have to know. Okay.
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you. That's all
Thank
I
you.
wanted.
Okay. I'm going to start over. Councilor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Denton,
No,
Councilor Pelham,
Yes.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Altman. Thank you, Mr. Reed
I
Miller.
have, could I
You
have
guys,
a point of information?
yes. Miss Hudson.
Ms. Hudson. Are you-
Did she-
Yeah,
Are you
Council
there?
Denton, you can, your point of information.
Did she
I'm
leave?
listening.
He's here.
Can you hear me? Ms.
Yes.
Hudson? Okay. My question is, I don't want to, this thing has unnerved me so bad. Have we done everything proper tonight? Have we followed this legally?
You've not done anything illegal that I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
I have another point of order, Madam Mayor. Forgive me, please. If you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Is that for me or for the attorney?
Permission to ask Counselor Pelham a question. Counselor Pelham, you called this special meeting and it was for this purpose. I know there's another item on the agenda, but given the derogatory outburst, I think it might be wise to just go ahead and adjourn. But I defer to you because you did call this meeting, but I'm not sure if it's wise to continue at this point.
Well, I put my 68 years of wisdom to it, and I feel like we all adults, when people make their choices to be negative and want to dismiss themselves from the information so that their constituents won't be informed. Hopefully she's on YouTube reviewing what we've done. I think our city clerk has waited a very long time to get her contract reviewed. And I want to proceed with doing that instead of keep placing it all further and further. And when someone's that negative with the profane language behind it.
Point of order.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to see how you felt. That's fine.
Is there a motion to go into closed meeting?
I move that we move into closed meeting.
For the purposes.
You need to state the entire motion language and cite the Freedom of Information Act exemption.
Somebody read that for me. Is that?
You want me to read it?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Move to enter into a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.23711A1 to discuss the terms of employment of a council appointee city clerk.
Second.
Motion's been made.
I have discussion.
I don't know if that should even be you.
Oh, I can't, I didn't make I just read the motion. Pelham made it.
I said so moved, yes, what you read. I didn't have that before me.
So it's been moved by Counselor
Oh,
Pelham and Counselor Gore. Do you second that?
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
I wanted to discuss it. No.
Counselor Pelham,
yes.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1 to move into closed.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Altman and Mr. Reed Miller, thank you for your time. I will no longer hold you to this meeting. And however, Ms. Hudson, we'll see you in closed session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Sorry, is there a different Zoom link for closed session, Ms. Bess?
Council, did you guys get a second Zoom link?
No.
You did not?
I didn't.
Okay, I'm gonna have to call.
A second Zoom link was sent out during this meeting, so if you check
Okay.
your email, but Ms. Hudson, I did not include you in the closed meeting. Give me one moment and we'll send you a link as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Manker.
Well, I can't find it. Where did you put it?
Is this closed session? Is this closed session?
No, ma'am, this is still open.
Okay, I clicked on your latest email.
We'll send out the link again, okay?
All right, thank you.
Give me 1 second.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't hate me, I'm sorry.
Hold on. It's city. Oh, geez. This is city.council. Just gonna have to leave this.
City.council.zoom, not at US or anything?
At Hopewell VA.